Hello! I'm Avery. I make book content on the internet, and once a month I will write a song about a book that I've read. I just wanted to say happy holidays if you celebrate the holidays during this time. The first YouTube video that I ever started for this channel was to talk about my favorite and my least favorite books of 2023. So it is a full circle experience, and I'm here to talk about my favorite and my least favorite books of 2024. So I read a whole assorted bunch this year, mostly fantasy, but also some random classics, self-help, books that scared me, some thrillers. So I have a whole bunch of books to go from. The first book that I absolutely loved in 2024 was The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. Poston? I'm sorry if I got that wrong. It felt magical. And that's the best way that I can describe it. It is magical. It is magical realism, which is fun, and I don't usually read it, but I think there's something so sparkly about the language that the author uses. It made me feel joyful. That's the best way that I can describe it. 7-Year Slip takes place when our main character inherits an apartment from her deceased aunt. And what she comes to realize is that within this apartment, time doesn't really exist. Randomly, a man starts living in this apartment at the same time that she is in present day, but this man technically stayed at the apartment in a different time. And so both of these people are coexisting during separate timelines in their life, and they fall in love. So I loved that. That was a very easy book to get through just because it was exciting and I wanted to see what was happening. I don't think I ever felt bored within any of the chapters. It was a straight through for me. If you like horror and psychological thrillers, I think I would recommend The Silent Patient. Silent Patient is about a psychiatrist who has always wondered about this one story in the news. There's a woman named Alicia who allegedly killed her husband and now lives within a mental facility. So he ends up getting a job there and tries to speak to her. And that's why the whole thing is called The Silent Patient. She has not spoken in years. With this book, I think I did feel connected to the characters and I kind of understood them, and they felt complex in a way that thriller characters don't usually feel to me. And it had a fantastic plot twist. I'll say it again. So if you love thrillers and you haven't read this one yet, and you especially like psychological thrillers, this is one that I would definitely recommend to you. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to talk about this next duology. I don't think people realize how good it is, and that is the One Dark Window duology by Rachel Gillig. This story is about a girl who lives in a world where a fog is taking over. It's this magical fog, and within the kingdom there are cards, but there's only a certain amount of cards. So you have the golden egg, gives you great wealth, 11 of those. You have the prophet, you can see into the future, but there are only 10 of those. La-di-da-di-da. So basically they're trying to figure out a way to control the fog, and they think that if they collect all of these cards, that will enable them to do that. These two books incorporate a very specific, well thought out, and creative magic system. I do think that nowadays a lot of fantasy books are combinations of other books that already exist, you know, kind of taking an idea and going in a different direction with it. This series or duology felt like the author just had a dream, and it is so original. I've never read anything like it, and all in all, I think this story says a lot about greed and wanting what we can't have, what it means to have something in excess, what we lose when we try to pursue something else so obsessively. And One Dark Window just has a fantastic romance. I loved the first romance and the romance that happened in the second book as well. The next one on my list I was not disappointed by, and it was Funny Story by Emily Henry. I didn't know what to expect going into this because I wasn't a huge fan of Happy Place. I still haven't finished it. I actually set it down midway through, but this was my kind of book. I thoroughly enjoyed this book. It's actually my favorite Emily Henry book that I've ever read. The main protagonist ends up getting completely screwed over by her ex-fiance. They're living together. She moves out to a new city with him in order to start a new life, and he decides that he actually wants to be with his childhood best friend. So he completely kicks her out of his life. She's kicked out of her home, is in a totally new city. She ends up living with her ex-fiance's childhood best friend's ex. So they're living together. They're both depressed because they've both been broken up with, both screwed over, and they develop this beautiful friendship. Does it turn into more? I don't know. I won't say anything about that. But just felt like it was a lovely story about two people connecting in a really dark period of their lives. Sometimes with romances, you're only laser focusing on the connection between the two of them, but with this one, it was that, but also them coming home to themselves, which I thought was incredibly beautiful. And I honestly needed this story when I read it, so thank you, Emily Henry, for always putting out such great work. Wow, I forgot I read this year. I read so many good books, but I read A Court of Thorns and Roses, and I read Throne of Glass last year. I don't even know what to say. Like, she's my favorite author of all time. These books are so important to me. I feel like I have nothing to add to the conversation because, you know, so many people already love these books, and it's for a good reason. If you're already in this world, you know there's kind of a, are you a Feyre fan or are you a Nesta fan? And I'm just gonna put it out there. Let's love them both. Why does there need to be slander? And also, while we're at it, stop coming for Elaine. She's gone through her own thing. And I think one thing that is really important to talk about with all three of them is they're all dealing with trauma in different ways. And I don't think it's fair to judge the ways in which people handle trauma. Could Feyre have been better in the fifth book? Maybe, to Nesta. But could Nesta have been a better sister in their first book and the fourth book? Yeah, maybe. But like, that's realistic. We're not always the good guy of the story 100% of the time. I also think it's important to factor in whose perspective we're reading from. Like, that's a very fun aspect of it. Feyre is going to be different objectively than she is from Nesta's point of view in the fifth book. And you know what? I think a lot of people have negative things to say about Elaine because we haven't read from her perspective yet. I strongly believe that all three sisters were doing what they knew how to do in order to help each other. I think the next book to come out is going to be from Elaine's perspective, and I think we're gonna realize that she's one of the most powerful sisters. That's all I'm gonna say on A Court of Thorns and Roses. It's a huge conversation, one that I cannot fit into this video, but if you haven't read a Sarah J. Maas book, highly recommend A Court of Thorns and Roses and A Throne of Glass. I haven't actually read Crescent City yet, so I'll probably read that in 2025, make it a series a year sort of thing. The next series that I love this year is the Cruel Prince series, and that's by Holly Black. It's about a human girl who is brought to this fairy world, and she has to find her own place in it. She has to find her power within a society that deems her weaker because she is a human. This is a 5-star series for me. I do love the romance, although I have to say that if you're going into it for the love of romance, you might be disappointed because it's not the focus of the entire story. I think the thing that I love the most about this series and this one specific protagonist is she's so upfront and honest about wanting more power, and I don't think I often read from that perspective. Someone who grew up being disrespected in every way and finds her own way creatively to the top. and doesn't feel sorry about it. I loved that. I absolutely loved that. And then if you're looking for a nonfiction book to read, maybe you like biographies or autobiographies, I really liked I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jennette McCurdy. I think that she is so eloquent with her words, and her voice was very necessary, especially in 2024. Reading about someone's experience in the entertainment industry during a time in which there was not a lot of protection allocated for young actors was very eye-opening. Okay, now some of my least favorites. I personally did not like Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. Before you come for me, because I know there's a huge fan base, I'll say that I think it was exciting, it was Gossip Girl-like, and I love Gossip Girl. But I didn't like it because I was worried about the message that it was sending while I was reading it. I was just worried about young girls reading this, maybe they haven't been in a relationship before. I think this story intermixed abuse with glamour. I mean, you have physical abuse, you have a lot of emotional abuse, but then at the same time, you're talking about what kind of outfits people are wearing. And I think on TV and in reality TV shows, you kind of get a sense of, oh, that's not good, because you see how people around react to those kind of relationships. But in this book, it very much normalized every kind of abuse, and you didn't get a sense of, oh, hey, this might be wrong from any of the side characters. You actually got a sense of, oh, they're meant to be together. You know, they're just going through it right now, but they're meant to be together. And I thought that was so harmful. Okay, so those were some of my favorites and my least favorite books of 2024. Thank you for watching. It's been a pleasure to spend this time with you. Maybe you'll take some of my recommendations. Subscribe if you want to see me make music for some of these books that I've listed in this video. I'll see you somewhere else on the internet, and have a lovely day.